Thanks, Nick. Perfect. Is this an okay volume?
Wonderful.
All right. I'm reading nonfiction as well. And there's also a cliffhanger because of the time limit. By the way, I'm a fiction writer usually, so for any of you who are typically nonfiction writers, if you want to give me any kind of feedback at the end, that would be much appreciated. Treehouse. A small house that is built among the branches of a tree for children to play in. This past June, I had the opportunity to revisit a favorite camping spot in the Eastern Sierras with my dad. On one of those cold mountain nights, while sitting by the fire drinking beer from red cups, he and I started talking about the past. This sort of thing doesn't happen too often anymore, camping with my dad, or more specifically, bonding with my dad. But ever since the introduction of alcohol into our relationship a few years ago, things have warmed between us. Alcohol, I dare say, makes my dad a better person. I suppose the same could be said about me. Rather than putting us under a spell when buzzed, my dad and I seem to fall out of a spell that usually keeps us reticent with each other. It's like, oh yeah, this is what it's like for a father and son to talk openly about anything that comes to mind. This is what I missed for 20 plus years. From underneath my dad's giant tortoise shell of a beer gut, a smaller, cuddlier creature emerged that night to reminisce about our old house in Southern California, the one I'd grown up in until the age of 14, the neighborhood and the neighbors, our yard and the tree house that he'd built for me. Dad didn't remember at first that we had eventually taken the treehouse down, that he'd hacked up the olive tree that had held it. I had to remind him. Oh, that's right, he said. His nonchalance kind of bugged me. Still clinging to a fragment of resentment and knowing how to work his Christian sentiments, I told him that olive trees can live over 1,000 years, and that, like the ones in Gethsemane, the garden where Jesus worried the night away with his disciples before being crucified. Dad looked down into the fire and said, huh. I wanted to ask him if he remembered one specific night involving the treehouse when I was 5 years old, a night that forever lodged itself into my brain. But I was too scared to broach the subject. Even after all these years, as a full-grown adult, with a minor buzz going, I couldn't bring myself to mention this thing that had caused so much shame for so long. I knocked back more beer, hoping, if only for the sake of moving further into the buddy realm of our relationship, to gain enough courage to step back into the treehouse with my dad. The olive tree once stood in the far left corner of our backyard like a hand poised to grip something. Squat, gray-beige trunk sporting 8 sprawling branches, 12 feet tall, open space cupped within plumes of silver-green lanceolate leaves. Soon after we moved to Dale Court in 1991, Dad used the tree to set into motion one of the prerequisites of the normalized childhood he hoped to provide me. In a matter of weeks, he drew up plans, bought sheets and boards of pine wood at the Home Depot, sawed, sanded, nailed, and drilled together the L-shaped box that sat 5 feet off the ground, closing it in as a square with the balcony holding the upright ladder. A flat roof and 4 windows with latching shutters gave the treehouse a secure and private feeling. I remember the clean pine scent of the freshly cut lumber, the warm perfume of the rust-red paint he washed onto the wood. I was drunk on these smells, on the anticipation of the finished project. My sister Wendy, 13, with a waning interest in the things of childhood, went as far as helping me decorate the interior. We used Mr. Sketch scented markers, that scintillating array of 12 Gumby head-tipped tools that always left my fingertips marked like a true artist, to draw on the unpainted walls. The centerpiece was a group portrait of ourselves and a few neighbor kids framed in a TV set, stars of our own show. Included in this portrait were next-door neighbor siblings Amanda and Ronnie. Wendy's kindness extended to all younger than herself, while I deemed these two as unwelcome guests in my olive fort. Always barefoot Ronnie, the 4-year-old troublemaker, pelting me with my own olive ammo, squeezing the dark purple juice onto my new wood floors, and always spitting, always working up phlegm balls that he dropped everywhere he went. Amanda, the 6-year-old elder sister, pot-bellied, freckled, and pug-nosed, spandex shorts beneath neon skirts, yellowed jelly sandals, better behaved than her brother, but still a nuisance, the instigator of coming over uninvited, the one who rang my parents' doorbell weekday evenings or weekend afternoons and said in her raspy voice, "Can Michael come out and play?" Translation, "Can we come into your backyard to play?" Understandable now, their divorced mother had recently moved them into their grandparents' house, heavy smokers and drinkers, the adults. The grandfather, a replica of Hulk Hogan, their treeless backyard, all pool and concrete. I remember finding cigarette ash clinging to my torso the one and only time I took a dip in their hot tub. I'm not exactly sure why it started. It must have been an unconscious chemical understanding between the three of us. But one day, Amanda, Ronnie, and I began playing an elevated game of house. I'd done nothing erotic up to that point, as far as I can recall. It would be easy to blame every sexy TV show, commercial, or movie I'd seen, specifically the WWF commercials featuring beefy men in Speedos bashing each other over the head with fold-out chairs that gave me mysterious boners. It could very well have been their Hulk Hogan look-alike grandpa who set me off on this erotic journey with lemon-headed Ronnie and Amanda. The allure of Dad's verdant backyard might have dizzied them into revealing their anatomies. Maybe they weren't getting enough or the right kind of attention at home. I might have even bribed them. You show me yours, I'll let you step inside my treehouse. We started on the side of my house, the cold, narrow length of the muddy space abutting mine and my parents' bathrooms, right next to Ronnie and Amanda's yard. Recalled the aisle of an abandoned church. It seemed natural to kick things off with a wedding, at least then we could justify what followed. First, Ronnie was ordained as priest, officiating the union between Amanda and myself. After that, I managed to convince Amanda to marry Ronnie and me. Amanda was taller and stronger than me, Ronnie shorter and weaker. I preferred my power over him. Pretending he was a girl was made easier with his long mullet. A few smooches later, we left the church and moved under the plum tree, catty-corner to the treehouse, where either a debauched reception or an early honeymoon began. Getting the punchy scent of fermenting plums and long dead leaves rising from beneath our feet, Ronnie and I hid under a white discarded woven blanket and played peekaboo with his nipples. Amanda stood nearby, giggling and dropping handfuls of dead leaves over our covered heads. The leaves scratched my ears and arms as I kissed Ronnie's nipples, which his overalls without a shirt underneath left exposed. Sunlight through the stretched blanket holes spotted Ronnie's smiling, freckled face. I could hear hose water splashing onto dirt beyond our green umbrella, Dad watering the other fruit trees. "What are you guys doing under there?" he called out. "Nothing," I answered. Things cooled down for a while with Dad nearby. It's funny what a child thinks he could get away with. Knowing what I know now, it's funny what a parent can deny. That night, or maybe it was the next night, or many nights later, Amanda and I ended up in my treehouse alone. My marriage to Ronnie was on the rocks. I needed to release some tension with his sister. Thus began my earnest attempt at recreating movie sex, complete with French kissing, or what I thought was French kissing. "I don't know how," Amanda said. "Open your mouth real wide and go like this," I said, and munched on her thin lips, receiving an unpleasant milky taste. Amanda's efforts weren't matching mine, so I moved the experiment to the nude phase. Served well by the tepid evening. Off came t-shirts, shorts, spandex shorts, and gender-appropriate undies. My red-ribbed Mickey Mousers and her pink-ribbed Barbies. I stared at her vagina. She looked down at my penis. What was supposed to happen next? I have no fucking clue as to what led to what happened next. Never had I seen it on TV. Never had I seen it in real life. Perhaps it's another instinctual impulse, like a baby's mouth to a mother's nipple. My head went between her legs, and my lips went to her vagina, and my nose got a whiff of something that made me look up at her and say with surprise, "It smells like popcorn." Phlegm dragged through her throat as she laughed and said, "It does not." "Does too, it smells like popcorn." I couldn't believe it. What could cause this comforting cinematic smell to come from such a mysterious spot? She kneeled and put her nose to my penis and said, "Well, yours smells like a hot dog." We both laughed. We were so enraptured by the boundaries we were pushing, so caught up in the largeness contained within that tiny wooden box, that neither of us heard Dad outside until it was too late. Thanks.